Oh, hello, and welcome to the Fresh Air Sci-Fi Show. I'm Joe,
And I'm Dave.
and starting a little bit later tonight because, as you know, Dave's still doing his computer science degree, so sometimes we will be starting a little bit later than usual. But you know, I hope you don't mind. In fact, I think actually when we start a little bit later, it appeases some of our more Western users anyway, because it gives them a chance to finish work and catch the live stream.
And Leon can catch more of the mix.
Yeah, but Leon, you only got the last track, man.
That's no good.
Yeah, so hopefully what we'll try and do is work on a way to remove time zones completely. So no matter what the sun is doing, we will all be on the same time zone, working the same patterns, and then we can all be doing the same thing.
Flat Earth theory is true.
But yeah, tonight is we're going to do something a little bit different. We've been saying for ages we wanted to do a little bit more like reviewing videos and sites and things like that. And Dave today managed to find two videos where it's 10 questions for atheists by atheists, or by an atheist, but obviously there's two of them. So we're going to be having a look at both of those and answering the questions. Dave, shall I load it up on my end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
less lag.
We hope so, anyway. So, if you guys just give us about a minute, I will set stuff up, and we will be right back.
The Mania one is only 2 minutes, so should we start with that one? The first one.
Get it up?
Yeah, definitely the first one. Sure. I didn't realize this was the only bank account.
Well, first time this year, but also start. Expecting to have to press pause.
Oh, nice one.
Share screen.
Yeah, weird statistic. My phone was 5 seconds behind you going live, and the Pi was 10 seconds behind my phone.
It's really weird.
So weird, isn't it?
Right. Hopefully you can see us all. So we're back. We're going to be doing these 10 questions for atheists by atheists. So we'll be answering these questions bit by bit. I'd love it if folks can join in on the chat as well. Might be a little bit hard for me with all the different screens. So Dave, if you could read out any comments that come in from others for me, that would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, hang on.
I will do my best to be able to press play. Now, if I maximize this, does it fit in the screen? Oh, I didn't mean to start it. Is that too big in the screen, or does that fit perfectly? No, that looks like that's fitting perfectly. Excellent. So
yeah,
right.
it's perfectly descent.
Excellent. So here we go. I will wind it back because that sounded like some pretty orgasmic intro music.
Hi.
Here are 10 questions that I have for my fellow atheists. If you are a former theist, at what age did you become an atheist?
Okay. That's an easy one for Dave. always.
Yep.
For me, it depends on your definition of atheist. I went in and out of non-theism and various religions throughout all of my sort of teenage years, and I don't think until I was either an older teenager or in my early tweens that I was a proper atheist. And then I sort of joined the online community and I was told, no, that's not what atheism is, and I became a lacktheist because all the other atheists were telling me that I was wrong with what atheism was. And then I spoke to more people and realized, oh, okay, this is what atheism is understood as. So, yeah, I mean, at which pinpoint would you like me to put it in there? It's quite a difficult one to really say. But let's just go. I'd say by the time I was in my early 20s, I was definitely over theism.
Leon posted a comment. He was 15, assuming they mean lack of belief.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's why I said, what is it? Are we talking about non-theist, or are we talking about
atheist philosophically? Yeah. Luke says he stopped believing in God at 9 or 10 and started becoming an atheist at the age of 17 to 19. I was a strong lacktheist until a month ago, and then we came along and corrupted him.
Brilliant. Do you know what? That's made my year. We've influenced one person.
Well, he didn't say we were the influence, but I'm going to go with it anyway.
All right. Ready for the next?
Yep.
Are you an outspoken anti-theist, or are you an atheist who doesn't mind religion?
Okay, that's an interesting one. I think there was a point where I was that keyboard warrior style atheist. I would say that right now, I don't mind religion, but I mind some of the harms that come from religion. So I'll be outspoken about certain issues.
Yeah.
What about you?
I don't think those two are necessarily exclusive positions. Like you say, you can be fine with religion, at least some forms of it, and some forms of religious behavior. And if it helps people be better people, then we should accept that. But you can also be outspoken against, say, getting creation in schools, or um, say, having a district in Israel where women aren't allowed to go out without long dresses and headscarves.
Where they throw homosexuals off buildings?
Yeah, exactly. You don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive, I guess. But I'm generally okay with religion and with belief in God. But like you say, there's certain practices where I speak out.
Were there any comments on that one as well from the chat? Put some music on in the background.
Leon says, not an anti-theist, but I would like if some theists wouldn't obligate others to believe. Which is, yeah,
that's more
similar
than fair.
to what... Yeah. Also, Luke says it was us.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We've corrupted one mind, yes.
I am now Socrates.
And that makes me Diogenes. From the end of month free for all, I think everyone would agree.
What do you consider to be the best argument for God?
And before we answer that one,
yep.
3 Vikings, 1 Atheist says he's an inspoken anti-theist until asked to speak on it. Yeah.
That's fair.
That's fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, we answered this question actually for Trinity Radio's one, didn't we? The best arguments.
We did.
and I said that there are certain things that I find I'm in awe about the universe, that sometimes when I sit back and think about it, it really blows my mind at how we're on this ball. I mean, it's not a proper ball, but go with the metaphor for now. Spinning around a burning ball, hurtling through the universe, and how it all works. And I also like the Kalam as a first cause, even though I think that it's unsound. I like the argument because it's at least logically valid. Those are probably, I suppose my first one is a bit of it's probably an argument from incredulity, but it's kind of like a design argument of sorts.
Yeah.
What about you, Dave?
Like I said with the Trinity Radio one, the one that has the most sort of not persuasive power, but the least, or the one that sort of has the most convincingness to it is the argument from design. Because however you get away from it, you can argue evolution, and I know evolution explains it all, but there you can push that back again and say, well, where does the teleology of evolution come from? Is it just pure random, or is there like a deist style god that influenced and designed it? However, we try and get away from it, there just is that appearance of design in the universe.
Yeah.
So our experience kind of it can lead us to think, "Oh, well, maybe."
Yeah, and obviously there's some counter arguments where you go, well, no, it's the way that we have used maths to we've sort of discovered the maths and then put it all in there, and that's why physics looks the way it does, because we've created the physics to explain these things. Then you have to go, well, did we actually create it, or did we discover these things that were always there? And I mean, you can go back and forth with these sorts of conversations, can't you? And I don't think there's necessarily a good answer that fully encapsulates either side there.
Exactly. It's the argument from design can raise the probability of God for me, because if there was a god that designed the universe, we would expect it to look designed. That kind of raises that probability slightly.
Hmm.
Whereas if we have a universe that wasn't designed, we might not expect to see design in it. I mean, how you would distinguish between non-designed and designed is a different matter. But the argument for God that if God exists, the universe would appear designed seems to raise that probability slightly.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, if you were to turn round and if that was actually specifically talking about the Abrahamic deity, I'd probably say there isn't a good argument for that one existing.
No, because there are other good defeaters for that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just to throw that one in there, because I'm sort of remembering the slide as it went across, and I actually think it did actually write God with the capital G. So, I mean, there's a difference between when we're talking about a god that could be a creator god, that could be a deistic god or anything like that, or if we're talking about the Abrahamic deity of, say, Christianity.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say that there are definitely less good arguments for that particular deity. And there's, as you said, Dave, a hell of a lot of defeaters.
Yeah. And I mean, the contingency argument can be quite good at getting you to a necessary being, and then going from that to the it must take a will, because otherwise, how could something that exists outside of time begin to do anything? Those are reasonable arguments. They just don't really work for me. But
No.
the design argument does raise that probability slightly for me.
Speaking of the contingency argument, I think we were going to cover that in another stream, weren't we? In fact, we
Yeah.
might even cover that on Saturday's stream with Khalil. But if not, we did have a comment on YouTube where someone wanted us to go into a bit more detail about that one. So if it doesn't happen on Saturday, it will happen probably in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, because in the stream we did about the atheist discussing Khalil, we sort of went into it, but we did go into the finer details.
Yeah.
Some comments from the chat. Ben says, yes, you are Diogenes. Speaking of the end of the month performance.
Yes. So you watched that one. I'm almost over my embarrassment.
Leon says cosmological arguments. An answer to this one.
So cosmological arguments in general, or a specific cosmological argument?
Hang on.
Non-specific.
Non-specific.
That's fair enough.
Luke says deist arguments. He finds the most convincing.
Yeah, that's fair. The only issue with deist arguments is that they're generally so different. Well, what I mean is that there's no real difference between a deist god and no god existing. In general.
Except as an explanation for certain things.
Yeah, it just fills gaps.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Luke says... Oh, no, I've already done that one.
Yep.
Leon says, no, Joe, the Kalam isn't valid because it commits God of the gaps. Duh.
Brilliant. That was a joke if anyone out there didn't get that.
It's a good thing we all know each other.
Yeah.
And Luke says he thinks the Mormons have a good point about Jesus turning up in the States, to be fair.
I mean, to be honest, that's as good as when my little boy, when he was younger, used to tell me that he thought God was watching him naked from the clouds. I was just like, why is God naked? He's like, I don't know.
I don't know. Well, how could who can make clothes for a being that large? He fills up the entire cosmos with nothingness.
And then in the future, he told me that, it was the past then, but after that, he told me that he was actually God himself, except he decided to die, so he wasn't God anymore because he wanted to experience life. And that was a bit of a, where the fuck is this coming from?
How much LSD was consumed?
None by either of us. That's the weird thing, man.
Flashbacks.
Should we proceed? Or are there any more?
Hang on, there's still a few more. Ben says he likes cosmological arguments best in terms of persuasive capacity. But he also thinks ontological arguments are interesting, especially modal ones.
Fair.
Leon agrees that you're Diogenes.
Yes.
Ben says pantheistic deists have an interesting point of view. Ben thought you were delightful in the end of month stream. And he says, when are you setting up an OnlyFans account? I mean, he didn't, but I thought I'd throw that in there for him.
I actually have been considering doing this because people have some really weird fetishes. So I could just do like elbows and knees and just rub different things into my elbows and knees.
Okay. Yeah, Leon confirms that it's just cosmological arguments in general.
Yeah, fair. Thank you for confirming, Leon.
And Luke says that's why deist arguments are so convincing. Because there's, yeah. Okay.
Fair.
What do you consider to be the best argument against God?
Only one? Which God?
Yeah.
I mean, there was the capital G there again, which is what I was thinking they might have thought. I mean, I would say in that regard, a lot of it is the logical incoherence of that particular God. I think that I'm not saying that God might not have been based on a God that was logically coherent, but within the Bible and the way people interpret the Bible and make claims about it, I genuinely feel that God is quite incoherent, like a square circle,
Yeah.
about gods in general, I suppose divine hiddenness is one, but I wouldn't say it's a strong argument. Um, evidential problem of evil, but that only works with gods that are supposed to be loving gods. mm,
That's the thing with arguments against God. They're more sort of cumulative. They all kind of add together to make a more believable case.
yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Um, I don't think there is any one argument that can defeat all gods.
No. But I would go in a case like this or a question like this, I would just go with something like naturalism seems to explain the world better.
Yeah, that's fair.
And if naturalism explains it better, that sort of entails that there's no God.
Yeah, or even it explains it in a more simplistic way as well. Even if it explained it exactly the same,
Yeah.
you're taking a step out of the chain,
Yeah.
and what doesn't seem to be a necessary step in the chain.
Yeah. It's and naturalism can explain why people would believe in gods and believe in multiple gods and that kind of thing. So it just seems the better explanation for me.
Fair.
So it's I suppose it's less an argument against God and more an argument against belief in God. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But then, as we said, as for arguments against God, it would be more cumulative, and it would
Yeah.
depend if there was a specific God you're referring to. And I think some gods are probably harder to have strong arguments against, like a deistic god. I don't think there's particularly strong arguments for or against. You know, it's just it's a gap. There you go. We'll fill it with that.
Sort of, yeah. It can
Yeah,
be.
yeah. I don't get me wrong. Some deists might have a more refined view on their god. Some might be influenced. You know, you might get a Christian deist, for example, and then they will have elements of Christianity within. But you know, being generalistic,
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there are certain base arguments and then certain tailored arguments, like you say.
there any from the chat on this one?
Yep. Leon says he likes divine hiddenness, which is a very good argument, especially for a god who's supposed to be seeking a relationship with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Luke says he likes the Richard Dawkins Blind Watchmaker. I have
Yeah.
to admit, I've not actually read it.
Mm.
Um, Somebody called Roger, who appears to be new, as far as I can tell. Hello, Roger.
Hello,
Thanks for
Roger.
joining us. He says he's not sure if it's an argument as such, but he quite likes how Sean Carroll makes a case against God. I'm guessing that's the YouTube video "God is not a good theory" by Sean Carroll,
Maybe.
and it's an argument that he makes quite often that God is not a good theory. Um, Ben says the best argument against all gods is an abductive one. Too many individual differences between God concepts makes it tough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's almost like an atheist stance in a way, isn't it? Or an element of atheism anyway within it, which on our justification for being atheists, that's one of the things that we said is one of the justifications for why we are atheists.
Yeah,
You know, we're not
and it
strictly atheists. It's just that argument fits into our why we're atheists.
yeah. Um, Luke's. Oop, hello. Looks fine on the stream. Oh no, there it's just appeared on the stream. There we go. Um, okay. Where Luke says he thinks the God of the Gaps is pretty good as well. So, like you were saying about the Deist argument, it's a placeholder.
Yeah.
Leon Ben says the explanatory and predictive power of naturalism is superior, accounting for more evidence ultimately, which I agree with. Leon says he thinks the deistic gods don't have enough explanatory power.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. They can provide us with efficient cause, but not sufficient efficient causes. That was a bit of a tongue twister.
You turn that
Luke
into a
says,
beat, can you? It's
yeah,
efficient.
atheist rap. Luke says, blind watchmaker is a response to the watchmaker argument, explaining that if we were designed, it must have been by somebody blind because we're not designed that well.
But,
Which is, yeah.
I mean, I've not heard that argument myself, but I've said similar things, like especially in response to things. Well, look at the eye. Why do we need glasses then? All of those sort of things.
Why does a bird see better than we do?
Yeah. Why do I need an inhaler to be able to breathe?
And why do bats and dolphins get the cool sonar and we get just clumsiness?
Yeah.
Leon says that the Dawkins thing is a good argument. And Philip's joined us. Hello, Philip.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah. And Philip says teleological arguments, so sort of arguments from design and things like that.
Fair. This was one against God, though. So you think the argument from design is a good argument against a God existing? Or are you responding to the previous one? You're just behind on the stream. Maybe you're lagging.
Could be. Okay.
All right, let's go to the next.
Do your loved ones, as in parents or significant other, genuinely fear that you'll go to hell? And if they do, how do you deal with their fear?
No. No, I suppose it's a bit different in England in general. I mean, we're a bit wishy-washy with religion. I have an aunt that's quite religious, but you wouldn't know because she doesn't force it on each other. Her boys, have to, say prayers before dinner and all that sort of stuff, but you wouldn't know it when you went round there for a booze up. And I assume it's pretty similar for you, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, my dad's an atheist and my mum's agnostic, so no, they didn't fear it. I think my nana feared it at one point, which is why she convinced my parents to send me to Sunday school, which didn't go down too well, and I was never sent to church again.
Because you were the real devil spawn.
Basically.
What about you out there? I imagine, from our UK watchers, it's probably a little bit similar, but I know a fair few of you out there are watching from places like the States, where religion, especially Christianity, is a much, much bigger thing, and it is a bit of a poison on your culture in certain areas. So how is that for you lot?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because there's a nice juxtaposition here. Luke says no, because I'm British, innit? They didn't give a shit. So basically what we said. And Leon says yes, and it sucks. Sorry to hear that, Leon.
I am sorry. When I get the spare room, you can always come over here.
Yeah. That would actually be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Luke says the only time he got told he was going to hell was at uni by the Christian Society because he was doing magic tricks.
Brilliant.
You demon. Summoning the devil.
I used to get told a lot of that by like the various street preachers that looked incredibly homeless and walk around with these folders of cartoons and things like that. They would often tell me that I'd be going to hell and all that sort of thing. Um, but I think they are probably the only ones. They're the closest that I think that we actually have to fundamentalists in the UK in general. Like
Yeah.
the crazy street preachers who have basically been rejected by society. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, in America, they're the ones running the society.
Yeah. I think the only time it's really happened to me is here in Wales when I was living in the village of Talsarn. The local youth club was at the church and it was run by a church group. And he found out I was atheist and began to hassle me. And like I bump into him in one of the local towns and he'd be like, "Oh, I've been praying for you. Have you had any signs from God yet?" And be like, "No, stop that. Go away." It's not so much the praying for you. I mean, he's welcome to pray for me, but it was the stopping me in the street and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know some atheists online get really wound up if someone prays for them. Like, I don't care.
No, I
Pray,
don't.
pray for me all you want. It's, you know what? It's nice that I'm in your thoughts.
Yeah.
Isn't I don't think that praying in the same way as when someone says, "Oh, I'm thinking of you," it's not really doing anything, but it is nice to actually be in someone else's thoughts.
Yeah.
Um, so and the thing is, generally, don't get me wrong, some people are very sarcastic and narky with it. Oh, I'll pray for you. But some of them are genuinely doing it with good intentions, and they're genuinely hoping that you'll see the light and have this realization because they have this belief that they find is absolutely wonderful, and they want you to have it too. And do you know what? That's really nice. They want to share something wonderful with you. It's just that we think it's not real.
Yeah. And
um,
like I say, stopping me in like WH Smith or places like that, it was kind of weird and creepy, especially when you're like 16.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Um, Ben says he wants me to tell everyone my Sunday school story. I will at another point.
Yeah, I mean, we did
Joe already
actually
knows it.
tell that story, but
Yeah.
it's just the fact that the stream cut off and we didn't realize. And
And
we had a
nobody knew.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we had an amazing conversation that night.
But I will tell it at some point.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't know how much of what we were talking about. There were some good stories between the two of us that came out. It was,
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's
know,
just they didn't come out.
no, exactly. It's annoying because, like, you know, when you sometimes you finish a stream and sometimes you're a bit like, oh, that wasn't as good as usual. Or we got to the end of that one and we were like, that was wicked. Oh, we haven't been recording for like the last 40 minutes.
Yeah. Always the way.
Well, you know, as soon as I get my new computer, I will actually start doing a hard copy at the same time, just in case there are any issues with the live streaming.
Yeah.
But that's not going to help us now.
No. So I will tell the story at another point when we're maybe just having a general chat.
Yeah, maybe at the next
Uh,
end of month.
and Ben says his immediate family don't believe anymore, and he doesn't think they ever did very strongly. He was the strongest believer of the family.
Oh
That's
wow!
interesting. Yeah.
And I guess it was living in Merstham that made you go, "Fuck this shit," and that's why you moved to Brighton.
If yeah. Um, you know which Ben that is?
No, I'm guessing.
Uh, um, Ben from the site.
Yes, so, yeah, same one.
Okay.
He actually, like, before I ever knew him, there was a brief time though where we lived about a road away from each other for about 4 months, but we just didn't
Oh,
know
okay.
each other. He
Bloody
literally
hell.
lived like just up there, but when we finally started chatting, he was just like, "Oh, I used to live near there."
Bloody hell. That's
Yeah,
cool.
small world, really small world.
Yeah. Um, Luke says you're trying to set up the atheist version of the Logan Paul YouTube house.
I don't know what that is.
I don't, but
but you know, I'm sure it's hilarious.
Luke
Sorry,
also
Luke.
says he doesn't know the new life churches are pretty intense. Leon says he'll keep the offer of moving into your house in mind. Just make sure you got good pizza. Luke says he went to a youth group and they handed out scrolls to come into a special event after the gig. All of them went, and the gift was an invitation to join Jesus. Everyone left immediately.
Brilliant.
Ben says, are we Muslim? He was a believer in Australia growing up, went to Catholic middle school and non-denominational Christian high school.
Fair.
And hello, Josh.
Chesh, how you doing?
Ben chose to go to church and be baptized and all that jazz.
Fair play to you.
Yeah.
So by the time you came and lived in Merstham, where I assume at that point, you know, there's no point, so I'm moving to Merstham. Was that what it was? I can't wait to get out. But to be honest, though, Ben, it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be. My neighbours and everything are absolutely amazing. And you know, the big pink monolith that was a bit of a drug den, that's been completely knocked down and turned into private housing and all of that. It's actually quite a nice area now. But it's still a bit like, well, I want to be by the sea. Right, was that the last one, Dave?
Well, a couple more have come in while you were just saying. Josh has just finished reading out live all the NS non sequitur show legal docs, so she's probably very knackered.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's really technical stuff. I have enough trouble reading out my own articles, so all of that stuff, fucking hell.
Legalese, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
No, I'm a philosopher, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I assume you had Intrigue Feline there, you know, translating certain bits for you, or did you understand it yourself? Because honestly, I'm completely lost.
You read out 58 dockets.
Oh,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
10 parts. And Ben says he was well and truly an atheist by the time he moved to Merstham.
And if you weren't, that would have clinched it for you. If there's a God, it wouldn't have created this place. We ready for the next one then?
Yep.
What religion do you consider to be the worst?
This one's pretty easy for me.
On him.
Scientology.
Oh, interesting. Why Scientology?
Because it's so obviously made up in a pyramid scheme, and they use mafia-like methods, including stalking, and it's bad.
Yeah, I suppose that's a different kind of worse to what I was thinking along the lines of. I was thinking being a bit more generalistic with the Abrahamic faith because of the amount of harm that they have caused people. But if I was to choose one of them, I don't know which one.
If we were going strictly Abrahamic faith, I'd probably go Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah. For lots of different kinds of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I get what you're saying with Scientology, but it doesn't. It's more, it's generally harm to rich people, isn't it? People that can afford it. Harm to a wallet.
Yeah, but still, they cause harm to normal people that come into it as well.
Fair.
Like you can hear of regular people who their spouse has gotten into it and then kind of poison their children against them when they wouldn't join Scientology. And the ones who didn't join have been harassed by other members of the church and things like that.
Yeah, fair. But somewhere between those ones, definitely the answer. Other religions don't seem anywhere near as bad by comparison.
Well, the one thing about the others, like Islam and Christianity and stuff, they were all started by people who believed that what they were saying was true.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree with you. I would think that they thought that they were saying was true, but
Yeah. But I
there's
don't
every
think
chance that
Elrond.
no,
Well,
Elrond definitely
no,
didn't.
he had a story that he couldn't sell to terrible pulp fiction magazines, and so turned it into a religion instead.
Yeah, yeah, fair. But I definitely say whether it's Scientology or it's one of the Abrahamic faiths, above any other religion, I would put those in that worst category. With the argument that you've made and the amount of harm that you see coming out of the Abrahamic faiths.
Yeah.
The other
But
religions,
they've
I know
also
there is
had
harm.
longer.
They have had a lot longer. And I know there are other religions that have caused harm over time, but a lot of it just doesn't seem to be as bad. Even ones that have been around longer and are still existing today don't seem to be causing that level of harm. So,
Yeah.
were there any comments in the chat about that one, or should we move on?
Oh, hang on. Luke says Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons.
Yeah,
Ben
so
says,
Jehovah's Witnesses is basically a form of Christianity, and I suppose Mormons is as well. So we're still in the
yeah,
realms of the Abrahamic faith. Although, I mean, there has been something good that has come out of Mormonism, and that is the Book of Mormon. And that's an absolutely amazing play. I don't know if any of you have
yeah,
seen it. I really, really enjoyed it. And there was a great South Park episode on it too. So, if you had to choose between the two of them, there hasn't been a good episode on
Ben says the worst morally is literalist fundamentalist Islam. And I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Leon says he would say being a Jehovah's Witness, but Dave makes Scientology sound like a better candidate. See, people shouldn't let me speak. They end up agreeing with me.
There's nothing wrong with agreeing someone that presents a better argument. Disagreeing with someone that presents a better argument, that's where
the
there's
problem.
something wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Roger says Westboro Baptist are pretty horrible.
Yeah. Specific type of Christian.
Yeah. Ben says literalist, funny Islam, the absolute literalism in the Quran, a rejection of any kind of interpretation, makes it dangerous and difficult for any human to challenge doctrine dogma. And yes, I actually think Islam generally tends to lead to more extreme belief. Maybe not extreme behavior, but more fundamentalist type belief, even among the liberalists.
Yeah.
Luke's off. See you later, Luke. Sorry you have to go.
Catch you soon.
Roger agrees Book of Mormon is hilarious.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've seen it twice, and I can't wait to see it again at some point, when we're allowed out in the public.
Yeah. And Ben says, however, RE Islam, I think one of the most moral edicts to come from Abrahamic faith is the principle of zakat. So the charity principle in Islam.
Fair.
Okay, and that's them.
Is it not playing?
Change the mind of a theist after a discussion or debate.
Have I ever changed the mind of a theist? Yes. Actually, I can remember one time on Twitter, I can't remember the entire conversation. But we were just talking about some things that were supposed to be facts in the Bible. And I explained a couple of things. I wasn't even trying to convince him. I was just like, well, I know you're saying this is a fact, but da 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 da. And he switched like 20 minutes into the conversation. He just went, fuck it, I'm an atheist now. Like and that was the quickest. I mean, there are a few people who, I mean, I remember speaking with Kristen back in the days of Does God Exist? And we had lots of conversations with a lot of people, and some people would want to know more and get into more and more conversations, and some of them we were not necessarily the ones that changed their mind, but we were the sum of the parts that helped change the mind. But I think that's probably the only time that I've ever had someone switch their opinion, and that quickly as well. It was just like oh, okay. I mean, wow. Maybe you hadn't thought about your position that much for the couple of things I've said to have changed your belief that quickly. That feels weird, man. What about you?
I've had a couple of people say I have. Like there was one on a forum who went from Christian to just deist. But even though he said it was discussions with me, I'm pretty sure that there were probably lots of other influences and lots of other discussions. It's just I happen to be one of the most recent, so therefore it was put on me by him. But I doubt that it was just me.
Equally, I mean, I've seen a conversation with you where you weren't stopping them being a theist, but you definitely changed your mind about cause and effect.
Huh?
So you were having a conversation with someone about cause and effect,
Oh yeah,
and it was about how
where
God
he
caused
said
something.
God was the cause of cause and effect, and it was, well, how could God cause and effect without cause and effect actually being there already?
Yeah.
I forgot about that conversation. Yeah, and he ended up agreeing with me, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't changing his mind. It wasn't stopping him being a theist in that sense, but you did change his mind about cause and effect in that regard. So it depends on how specific this question is. Yeah, there's times when we've changed theist minds on a smaller scale, like the cause and effect thing, and there's probably less so where we've made someone lose their faith. But I don't think that that's particularly my goal anyway. The only
No, not mine.
people who I would like to lose their faith are those Bundy type people, and unfortunately, they're not the sort that would listen to me anyway.
Yeah,
And you,
they're not the
yeah,
sort that would listen to anyone.
exactly. And the average theist, generally, I don't mind. You know, they're generally good, rational people in most regards. As I think the average person is generally good and generally rational, and we all have parts where we're not that good and we're not that rational. So, yeah.
Yeah. Check the chat.
Whilst you look at that,
Ben says he was an important component of a Catholic online friend deconverting. He thanked him later for it. This was years ago, and they're still friends. That's pretty awesome.
nice.
Leon says he's never been able to change a theist's mind. And Ben says, looking back, it's surprising as I was so much less informed and more edgy and sometimes aggressive back then.
Yeah.
That can probably work for some people. And because the shock of somebody being aggressive to them can make them take a step back.
Yeah, generally not in the right way though. Generally.
No, generally, yeah. And especially the way a lot of YouTube atheists and online atheists kind of do it.
Right, we're ready for the next then?
Yep.
What advice do you have for atheists who are brought up in religious households in communities who fear telling their peers about their lack of belief in God?
Fuck it.
What was that again? I missed most of the question there. Sorry.
I'm gonna go back. Just there. I'll let it read out. I'm just trying to go back to the beginning
Oh
so
no,
you
no,
can.
that's fine. That's fine. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not really sure I
Who are
have
brought
any
up in religious
advice.
households in communities who fear telling their peers about their lack of belief in God.
Oh,
What do you think of
hang on.
self-proclaimed gay
Didn't stop.
Christians and
Right. So, in the previous question, I should probably stop with it on the screen. You know, if I was smarter, I'd have thought of that in the first place. Um, but I'm not. You know. I can understand that this is actually a big burden. You know, my initial glib response of "fuck it" was just that. I think that it can be quite telling of people who are supposed to love you if it will stop them loving you if you lack belief in a god. If you hold a different ontological position to them, did they ever really love you? Did they ever really care for you? And if the only reason they love you is because you believe in God too, I wouldn't call that real love. And I think, as hard as it is, time to find somewhere else to go. Now, there are certain cultures and communities where being an atheist can get you killed, and in that regards, flee the country. Because if you can, and I know that's really hard for some places and some people and all of that. But I think in a more Western society, if they're not going to accept you, then it is just time to move on and accept that they're not going to accept you and find people that will.
Yeah, I'm not sure what advice I would have for this because I've never really been involved in this situation. The best thing I could think of is make sure you're doing it for the right reasons or not believing for the right reasons. Um, and if you can find a community that will be accepting of you, sort of like a humanist association or something like that, and visit them and see what kind of support they can give you.
And do that first.
Yeah. And in some situations, I would say be careful.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, this isn't really something I have experience with, so I'm not comfortable giving too much advice.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, from our perspective in the UK, yes, there are certain parts which are religious, but in general, we have a much more watered down version of religion in comparison to places like America, which are very fire and brimstone. And America's nothing in comparison to some of the Islamic states.
Yeah.
So it really, really, really depends. And in fact, do you know what? The first thing I would say is try and find someone else who has come out in a similar community and find out about their experience
Yeah.
and lean on that. And actually, if they tell you it was the worst thing ever, maybe just don't necessarily come out to them, but move on and move away and find a place that you're accepted. I think there is no one good answer to this question.
No.
I mean, the simplest one is it depends.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay, some comments. Chesh says that she's oh, this is referring to the previous question. Chesh says she thinks she's changed people's minds more about the conversation rather than the topic. And yeah, that's also a good approach.
Hmm.
Hey, the Maverick, he's joined us now.
Hey, Maverick, how you doing?
He says he's a theist and he doesn't think anybody will ever change his mind.
Fair enough.
Uh,
Are you open to it though?
Good question. Leon says this confirms what they mean by atheist.
Yes, it does. So they're
Yeah.
talking about a lack of belief atheist. So a
Yeah.
lacktheist. So yeah. It's interesting when you put it in these terms, because obviously Dave and I are the belief gods don't exist type atheists. So I don't know if anyone who is watching this video and has got to this point where we're having this discussion, just so you know, when we're talking about atheists in general, we will be talking about the belief gods don't exist atheists. We'll speak about non-theists if we're talking about people that have some form of lack of belief in God. So much of a muchness. At the end of the day, doesn't really matter. Don't care how you identify. You want a conversation with it about us? Happy to have it. But we know now that they're talking about any form of non-theist.
Yeah. Ben says, Uri, the advice. He says something similar to what we were saying. It depends on the circumstances. Friends living in liberal Christian and privileged societies can be then be best yourself carefully but proudly. I guess maybe be the best yourself carefully but proudly and be a good example, which is a good answer. Leon says he'll be right back.
Catch you in a moment, Leon.
Roger says if they are in fear, I'd say keep it quiet, and when you move away and financially settled, then tell people, which is fair enough.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, if you're actually that worried about it because you have a real worry there because of maybe influences where you've seen them treat others in that way, that's definitely the way to go with that sort of thing.
Yeah. Ben says, I've seen a Muslim friend who was gay dealing with questioning his faith who suffered beatings for their nonconformity in belief and sexuality, and they needed to stay quiet and cautious.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, yeah, because some societies, it can be very harmful to your health.
Yeah. Which is why we said
Maverick,
it does depend.
yeah. Maverick says, why do you need to tell anyone of your personal beliefs? Well, just to be honest about yourself, and to not pretend. And I
Yeah.
suppose if it's your family, you want them to know
Who
you.
you are and accept you
Yeah.
for who you are. I mean, let's put it in terms of something else. Okay, not necessarily a belief, but something like a sexuality. You know, it's part of who you are, right? It's part of who you are. It's part of your identity, right? You are maybe different to how you're expected to be, whether you're homosexual or you're bisexual or you're asexual or any of the others that come out these days, polyamorous and sorry, but any of those forms, like you might want some support from your family. You might want people to talk to. You might not know how to deal with it. You might feel like you're the only one, and you know you just want your family to accept you for who you are. So if you're in a community of people that all think a certain way and you don't think that way, you're going to feel very isolated, right? So all of these people believe this way and you don't. You are going to feel isolated, especially in this crowd of people going to these sermons, doing these things that you're supposed to do if you believe. You're going to feel like a fraud. And what you want is some support from your family to say, well, you know what, okay, we accept you for who you are. We hope that one day, you know, you come back to God or whatever. But you know, we still love you, and you know, we understand if you don't come to church, so on, so forth. So it's about acceptance of who you are. You know, like,
Yeah.
we accept who you are. You're a form of a theist. I'm not going to judge you for your theist. I don't care that you're a theist. You know, I might care if you went out harming people because you felt that your God told you to, but I don't care that you have a belief in some form of deity. And I'd hope that you wouldn't care that we don't believe in gods. In fact, we believe gods don't exist. I mean, there are a lot more things to our personality, but it's good that we can all accept each other for this different ontological position.
Yeah, and as part of a secular country, you would hope that people would be more accepting. And the only way to make that change is for everybody to be honest about their positions.
Exactly.
Okay. Ben says you don't have to tell anyone of your personal beliefs. It's a choice, but it's also a freedom, which is an excellent example. And sometimes freedoms need to be practiced and lived or deserve to be for how they can express liberation and self actualization.
Fair comment.
Yeah. Um, and he says it was be your best self. The previous one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Maverick says, from the perspective of a theistic parent, they may feel as if they have failed if their child is no longer a believer.
They might. But
Yeah,
then I think they've actually failed if they don't accept their child regardless. Part of being a
yeah, even
parent is
more
to
so,
love your children. So,
and support them.
exactly. And do you know what? That love and support, rather than rejection, might actually bring the person back to going, oh, okay, maybe I do believe again.
Yeah.
So,
Um, Welcome back, Leon. Uh, and Roger says it's a shame people have to live in fear and hide their beliefs, and I agree, and that goes for any belief. Like if you were in an atheistic country where atheism was a part of the fabric of the government, and the society, I would hate it if believers feared coming out and saying that they believed in God.
yeah, I mean, look at some of the attitudes we see online from fellow atheists and how they belittle and basically bully theists. And it's horrible. And imagine if
Yeah,
there was an entire country like that. Now, I get that that's more online behavior. That's not how the average atheist acts. And just like the average fundy you see online isn't how the average fundy acts, but they're both the loudest and proudest and the ones that we all hear of.
yeah,
Yeah, and in either side of fundamentalist theism or atheism, I would not want to be in that community.
I wouldn't.
Oh. Right, next one.
Yeah,
In God. What do you think of self-proclaimed gay Christians and gay Muslims, considering that neither one of their respective holy books are fond of homosexuality?
So this one is interesting because I think that it's very difficult for gay Christians and gay Muslims, and generally their religions are not very accepting. Now, if you're in a very liberal Christian area, they love everyone, and they might not like the act, but they might not. They might sort of judge internally, but they won't reject someone. But I think the more fundamentalist the religion is, they will be rejected. Now, that isn't actually talking about how the holy books perceive them, and I think that's even weirder because I find it incredibly difficult to understand how there can be gay Christians and gay Muslims considering passages within the Bible and Quran on these subjects.
yeah,
It's a tough one. I mean, to be honest, it's one of those things where it's tough enough to be gay, I imagine. Um, let alone a gay Christian or a gay Muslim. Um, what sort of cognitive dissonance must you almost permanently be in? You know, do you have to be an inactive homosexual in that regard? Because one of the I've had these conversations with theists and some of them homosexual at the time. They're saying that it's a test from God. This is how they attribute it. It's a test from God. They've got this inclination to do the worst moral thing, well, or one of the worst moral things ever. But their resistance against it and their resolve to live a straight life even though they're gay is gonna assure them to get to heaven. And you're just like, wow. Wow. I don't even know how to approach that, really.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't really have much thoughts on this one except stay safe. That's what I
Yeah.
think of them. Yeah.
And I'm sorry. And I hope you find a community of accepting people.
I mean, there is a lot of liberal Christianity going on in America now that is quite accepting, and even fight for the rights of gay people and trans
Mhm.
people. But yeah, I suppose you'd have to be very careful depending on your geography.
Not an easy one.
No. Um, Josh says, what may be good for one might not be good for some. I think that's in relation to the last question.
Fair.
Maverick says, as a theist, he commends them for maintaining their beliefs, which is fair enough. Leon says, I don't really think anything of them other than he's glad they are able to live with their religion and sexual orientation, and he hopes they're happy.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. And Maverick says, I don't think it is one of the worst moral things within Christianity, though in Islam it may be.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, these conversations were a while ago. I'm just pulling out certain lines that appear to me from the conversations we had.
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, it's not immoral at all. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we move on?
Yep.
Leave your answers in the comments,
Oh,
or if you make
we've
a
done it.
video response,
Yep.
post a link to it, and I'll
Only
watch
took
it.
an hour to
Please
get
share
through
this
2
video
minutes.
with your friends and take care. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for that one. That was interesting.
It was,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah, no, and well done for finding it, Dave. So we say the channel that it was from. That was Mania. There you go.
Yeah.
Mania. Tell you what, we'll give them a subscribe as well.
Nice one.
And awesome. Right, we are going to go on to the next one, but I am going to take a brief break because I'm out.
Yeah, I'm going to grab a can of Coke as well.
Okay, folks, so we are going to be back in just a couple of moments. Have some bongo fun.
Nice one. Hit 'em up.
Sorry for the delay, folks.
My headphones crapped out.
Yeah, Dave's only got one headphone now.
Goddamn Bluetooth.
Luke, yes, we might be about Sunday. Very busy Saturday. Going to Godstone Farm, and then we've got that chat with Khalil. I think I might be free on Sunday. I will do my best to be there, and I will do my best to behave, Luke. I may be watching from the kitchen, cooking a roast. But yes. I suppose it depends on what time you're scheduling it for. So yes, Maverick, that is Justin. We're having a chat with him 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. GMT. Just to have a chat with him about his experience and the arguments that convinced him and the fallout from the atheist community and the negative behaviors and all of that sort of thing. Because, I mean, to be honest, I respect the fact that he's someone that listened to arguments and changed his mind. And there are so many atheists out there that are so rigid and fixed in their positions that I find that, they're not being the people that they say they are and they want others to be. But yes, Chesh, you're right. He does look a little bit sepia-toned. So, yes, Philip is joining. Yeah, because Philip was there for the original stream that we did where we were discussing it. So it made sense to have Philip there with us as well. So it'll be the three of us and Khalil. Hopefully he won't feel like we're dogpiling. We're not going to be. I'm really interested in the conversation. I mean, as you know, me, Dave, and Philip, we're not necessarily out to stop someone being a theist. We're interested in beliefs and things that convince them and the way they think about things and the way things have changed their mind. We're interested more in the conversation than we are in the fight. So, who knows what will come out of it? Maybe all three of us will be Muslim by the end of it. Who knows? I think that's unlikely, but you got to be open to these things happening. But yes, it's definitely going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, to be honest.
I'm a bit nervous, if I'm honest. But so we should probably get on, because this one is about 20 seconds longer than the last one, and the last 2 minutes 40 seconds longer. So
yeah, so that's an extra hour and a half.
Yeah. So if there's any overlap, we may skip sort of through some of the questions here a little bit, or give a shorter answers, but we're still up for reading out any that you have in regards to this, obviously. So should we get on? You ready?
Yep.
Hey, what's up? I'm DallasWade, and welcome back to another worship service. If you saw my last video, I responded to 10 questions for atheists from an atheist. And after I responded to that video, I watched several other people's answers to the same video, and I was really interested in seeing other people's opinions and answers to these questions, and it really got me thinking of other questions that I wanted to hear other atheists answer. So I decided to compose my own 10 questions and put them in a video, and anyone who's interested can answer them. So without any delay, here are 10 questions for atheists from an atheist. What religion were you once a part of, and what compelled you to first question its validity?
Oh, it jumps just after it. Well, I mean, I can answer for Dave on this one. None. For me, I suppose I was sort of, say, born into Christianity. I think part of the reason, my nana was Catholic, and as I mentioned, my aunt's very religious. I'm still not particularly sure of my mum's ontological position. It's never been anything that's come up. but they sent me to Christian schools because they gave the better education. So my mum gave me all the tools of Christianity because I'm a bit of a prick. And if she'd have let on that it was all bullshit, I would have told everyone. Um, there would have been a lot of Dave's Sunday School episodes. The first thing that probably compelled me to question its validity was a kid called Patrick Gillett that didn't believe, and I was just like, well, why wouldn't you? And that was when I first started questioning things. And then over time, I started asking more and more questions to various like the headmaster and the principal, and the when I went on to secondary school, we had chaplains and all of that sort of thing. And the more questions I asked, the worse the answers became, and the more questions it made for me. And it just it just got worse and worse and worse. And eventually, I let go of Christianity. I started looking into other religions because I felt that there still had to be something that explained it all. And I was in and out of being a non-theist and a certain type of theist, and then eventually I became an atheist. I suppose as you don't actually have an answer for that one, that was quite quick, and we can move on.
Yeah.
Are there any particular comments in the chat, or should we just get on with it?
Luke says he was a K for Christian.
But there you go.
What finally convinced you that you were an atheist?
I mean, that's an interesting question in the phrasing. It was when I held the belief gods don't exist. If you mean my justification for being an atheist, I couldn't tell you what the final thing was. I can just tell you it was a long process that I, spent all the time looking in different religions and looking into science and looking at different explanations and speaking with a variety of different people. And, that's basically it. I don't know what the final thing that of part of my justification was, but what convinced me that I was an atheist was just holding the belief this. And I suppose for you, Dave, you don't have an answer on this one because you always were.
Always was. Yeah.
Are there any comments in the chat on that one either? I suppose they're a little bit behind. So,
Philip says he was a Christian as well.
I suppose that makes sense from his locale. It's probably the most common religion where he is.
Yeah.
All right, we can move on with that one. There you go. I mean, we're getting through this one a little bit quicker because we've already answered some of them.
How have you been treated by your family and others after you became an atheist?
I mean, again, because we're in the UK, well, Dave's always been that way, but because we're in the UK, it's not a big thing. It's never been a thing over here. Online, obviously, there is a bit of animosity between theists and non-theists in general. But and you know what? Some of that is our own doing as non-theists / atheists ourselves. So I can understand why that is there. But yeah, for me, I'm quite lucky in the fact that it's never been an issue. As Luke said in the previous one, it's never been an issue for him. But for some of our American viewers, it has been an issue, and they have been treated differently. I don't know if any of them want to tell their specific story, and I'm not going to ask them to, because I know for some people that it can be quite painful, the way that they're treated. But if they do feel the need to, then honestly, we're happy to listen. But I wouldn't expect anyone to share that sort of story just off the cuff. Maybe take some time to mentally prepare for that one. Are there any coming in from the chat on that one though, Dave?
Yep. And just to answer this one quickly, I have family members who are religious, like my cousin, some aunts, and things like that. And none of them ever treated me differently because I was atheist.
Yeah.
Leon says he remembers his friend asking him if he believed in God. The question caught him off guard, and in the moment he told them yes, but after reflecting on it, he realized he didn't actually believe anymore.
Ah, that was probably on the previous question.
Yeah.
Yeah. There must be a bit of a delay. Sorry. I'll tell you what, between the questions, I'll try and play a little bit of music and bullshit a little bit more and do a
Wait to
bit of
catch up.
that.
Yeah. I'm guessing this is in response to this question now, but Luke says terribly.
Oh, really, Luke? That's interesting.
Philip says it wasn't a big deal.
Fair. Good to hear.
And as a continuation of his last comment, Luke says he is an outcast. Hey, yeah.
I just don't know if Luke is just fucking with us now or not.
Well, he says his girlfriend was typing whilst he was washing up.
Oh, okay. So she's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
So where's yours, Luke?
He's a psychologist. He's very serious about human behavior.
Super serial.
Super ethereal.
Are you open to religion? And what sort of evidence would one need for you to subscribe to it?
I mean, to be honest, there are atheistic religions. So when you say, are you open to religion? That can be kind of vague. I'm assuming that they mean a theistic religion rather than an atheistic religion. Yes, I suppose I am. I've said before a few times that there's part of me that would love to have this sort of belief and a surety to afterlife and all of that. But the sort of evidence that I would need to believe in a particular deity, even just getting into the God belief is probably so out there now that I don't think that I'll ever get there. And even then, even if I believed in that deity, depending on the deity that it was, there still might be one of those things where I find you immoral. So why, you have to answer these things for me first. So not only would I need to be convinced of that particular deity, but they would need to answer a hell of a lot of questions, about why they do certain things certain ways and certain morals and so on and so forth before I could ever subscribe to it myself. I think it's just, especially with something like Christianity, there are so many things within it that I personally find quite immoral that I would need an explanation from God to actually to explain all of these things. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, there might be a religion I don't know about that I might be open to, but most of the ones I've come across and looked at and learned, I'm not really open to them. Not as such. I think the arguments against them are so compelling that it would take a lot to convince me, but I would be open to some kind of belief in God, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I actually kind of wish there was a God because it would mean that there was more than just the physical. It would be all this mystical stuff that existed in the universe too. And that would make the universe far more interesting.
But you'd also have to reconsider your compatibilist view on free will.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what would make it more interesting.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah. As for the sort of evidence, compelling arguments might change my mind. It's just none of the arguments have done anything other than raise the probability slightly, but naturalism just it has a higher probability, way higher probability for me. But a religious experience would change my mind.
Yeah, even then, I still think you're at the point, and I think I'm at the point too, where I'd rationalize it. You know,
Yeah, you could still be skeptical of it, but it certainly would be pretty good evidence for me.
yeah, no, that's fair. I suppose it depends on the type of evidence as well. Sorry, the type of experience. If you just suddenly
Experience.
felt the love of God, then you could put that down to any number of things. But if it was a hell of a lot more
If it was a Joan
specific,
of Arc-like experience.
yeah. Hmm. There any from the chat on that one? Shall I give it a couple of seconds of?
Okay, it seems some comments have already come in. Philip says he's open, but he doesn't think he'll ever get there. Leon says he would need an undeniable miracle. Philip said, to follow on, says maybe some sort of general theism best case scenario, which I can get behind that one. That is sort of my feeling as well. Overnader. Oh, Overnader is speaking to Chush about the non sequitur documents.
Ah, fair. Cool. On to the next one then.
Would you date or marry someone who was religious? Do you have religious friends?
Okay, so that's two questions in one, really. Yes, I would date and marry someone that was religious, as long as it wasn't incredibly incompatible. So if they were incredibly fundamentalistic, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't right now. Obviously, I just have to put that in there. I'm presupposing that I'm not in this married state.
Yeah.
Right. If I was single and available, then yes, I would, as long as they weren't overly fundamentalist. As for having religious friends, yes, I do. And you know what? Some of them watch this stream and we get on very well. So I don't see any issue with having friends who are religious. There can be certain incompatible points. There's some people who I've met through places like Twitter and Facebook that happen to be religious, and they're absolutely fantastic people. And to be honest, some of my religious friends I prefer to some of the atheist people that I've met online. So, and I'm an atheist myself. So what does that say?
Yeah. Mine's similar to this. I have dated religious people in the past, and it was fine. And I have religious friends and religious family. I don't really see the problem. Like you said, it really depends on the level of fundamentalism that's going on with the other person.
And I suppose in regards to our viewers, which I will let you get to those comments, but I reckon, they are going to be saying similar things in the sense that they've got religious friends because they're friends with some of the people who watch the stream with us. So that's going to be one of the things. And has that given them enough time to catch up with the stream and respond, Dave?
Yep, there's a few come in. Philip says yes, he would date, marry someone who is religious. And yes, he has religious friends. I think most atheists do, at least reasonable atheists. Luke says yes, as long as they wouldn't try to impose it on me or our kids if we had them, which is fair enough.
Yep.
And yes, he has religious friends. Check his YouTube for chats with them. Plug, plug, plug.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody go check out Bearded Heretics YouTube page.
Yeah, no, do it. Not right now, obviously, but after the stream, definitely go check it out. Some of the conversations he has with his religious friends are really interesting, especially as they all operate a slightly different ontological position themselves as well. It's not just all the same kind of Christian, for example. They're good videos. They're generally under the title of Ask an Atheist on Bearded Heretics channel. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, Luke, but they're the ones that you're generally with your religious friends.
And he's a top bloke as well.
Oh, yes, he definitely is. Are there any more comments, or should we move on?
Yep, Leon says he would, and yes, he has religious friends. And Overinator says he would marry a religious person. Why limit your pool?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's it.
I
And
mean,
welcome,
to be honest,
Overinator.
on the subject of why limit your pool, that's why I always think, bisexual people are really lucky because they've got a really open pool. If I could choose to be.
What is your favorite religion or mythology, if you have one, and why?
There's probably two that jump out at me more than anything. One is the Asatru, the Norse faith, and the other is Hinduism. For the Norse faith, I liked their gods. I liked the fact that women tended to be the religious leaders, and there was that power of women. And I liked the whole sort of a more equal culture. And I just liked the gods in general. For Hinduism, I don't like things like the caste system, for example. But I did like the fact that they tended to be more accepting of other religions. And don't get me wrong, I love all the color and things like that and all the festivals that they had in their religion too. But the one thing that struck me, which was really nice, was how they just viewed all religions as different aspects of their own and different ways for people to get good karma and proceed to their next life in a better way. And I obviously I'm trying to give as short as answer as I can. There's a lot more to these religions, and there's a lot more negatives and positives, but for a short answer, they're the ones I'd give.
It's been a long time since I really looked at very many mythologies. But when I was younger, I loved the Greek mythologies and the Roman mythologies just because they're so out there and so human at the same time. Like the gods really are just human, just very human with very human problems, and like the wife that Zeus is cheating on, and he's a scoundrel, and
Yeah, it was relatable.
yeah, and it also told stories about how things came to be, and the sun traveling across the sky, that kind of thing. I like the Norse religions and the Norse mythologies, but I also had a huge fascination for the Chinese Jade Emperor and things like Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, because the Jade Emperor was this guy who he was kind of bored, so he created the universe and created humans, and he watched them go about, and he was kind of like saw it like a Sims game that he eventually just got bored of and left to go on its own. I mean, that's bastardizing it really badly, but if you look into it, it's a really, really good mythology.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that one myself, so I need to look into that.
Did you ever watch Monkey Magic?
No.
Oh.
Oh.
Get out.
Yeah.
How could you not watch Monkey?
I think I might have times when, in a haze with a few friends, watched Monkey.
Yeah, I know, it's great. But that's based on Sun Wukong, the Monkey King.
You've just reminded me about something that I also liked about the Norse mythology. And it was one of the reasons when I was looking for a religion, I started trying to practice the Norse religion, was the fact that their creation story was very similar to science in a metaphorical way. And it was talking about the plane of fire and the plane of ice, which were seen as opposing elements. So matter and antimatter colliding and causing this big bang. Which it just sort of made me go, oh my God, there's there's a religion that before the science even knew what was going on had an idea about what happened. I mean, that could be complete chance. It could have just been a complete story, you know. But when I read that at that time, I mean, God, that was 23 odd years ago. I read that, so I might even be bastardizing it. But that was one of the reasons that I really connected with it there, because there was that. I was starting to have more and more of an affinity to science as I was losing more and more of my faith. And then I was just like, oh my God, these ones work together.
Yeah. And I do have another one that might shock a lot of people. I'm actually kind of fond of some Christian mythology,
Ooh.
like the end times type stuff, because they make for fucking great horror films. Like The Exorcist, The Omen. It's sort of traditional good versus evil type stuff, and I actually kind of enjoy that type of stuff.
It would
Although
always
most
come
people
back to
wouldn't
horror
consider.
movies to you,
Yeah,
wouldn't
of
it?
course. But it does. You got to admit, it does make great horror movies.
It does. It does. And actually, you're right on that. I mean, think about Supernatural. I don't know if you watched that series, but I really
Yeah,
enjoyed that series, or
yeah,
even Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or any of those ones. Without that Christian mythology that went through it, it'd be really dull.
yeah. Exactly. It and it because a lot of our culture is kind of grounded in it. We kind of grow up in it, and we can imagine it becoming the case, even if we don't believe it. It's in us in just how we see things, so it becomes relatable. And they are sort of tales that can be transferred to other cultures as such, but not quite like a ghost tale can or a vampire tale can.
Hmm.
But the Christianity adds something to the Western tales like Van Helsing and things like that,
Yeah.
which you wouldn't find in, say, the Indonesian horror films or Thai horror films about vampires.
Yeah, I'll go with you there.
Yeah, so that one might shock people, but yeah,
Yeah,
I kind of enjoy some of the Christian mythology,
yeah.
even though a lot of Christians would say it's not mythology.
Yeah. Are there any responses from the chat on that one?
Yep, hang on. Philip says he has no idea.
Is that you
Luke
saying you have a deer with no eyes, or?
Luke says Norse, Greek, and Roman mythology. And hello, Manny. He's joined now.
Manny, how you doing, dude?
He asks Philip, not even Scientology's mythology. Luke says they, with regards to Norse, Greek, and Romans, they literally describe it as a Sims game in the mythology. Well, I think that's what he's responding to.
Unless you're talking about what you were talking about before with the Game
The
Emperor.
Chinese, yeah. Odin made humans out of mud and sticks. Very accurate.
Yeah, we were made poorly. Cool.
Yeah. Luke says Dracula is still the best vampire book, classic horror book.
As in Bram Stoker's?
Yeah, I would think.
Actually, one of the better Dracula movies I saw was Dracula Untold. Don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah, I've not actually seen it, but it sounded really good.
Yeah, it came on Netflix, and I was just, when you're looking for something throwaway just to have on the background whilst you're doing something else. And I think I wanted to have something on whilst I was writing an article. And I put that on, and the article didn't get written.
Ah. Did you watch the recent BBC mini-series for Dracula?
No. Is it on anything that isn't BBC yet?
I think it might be on Netflix.
Ah, I'll have a look.
The first 2 episodes are absolutely brilliant, and the final episode is absolutely shite. But the Dracula in it is fantastic. He plays the part really well. But it also has a female Van Helsing, and
Excellent.
she is fucking amazing.
Yeah. We actually watched the series Van Helsing.
Couldn't get into it.
I
It's the one with the girl who's of the
a
lineage
descendant
of
of
yeah.
Yeah. I think I watched the first season. I don't know if I watched the whole first season, and it was the second season that turned me off, or it was the end of the first season. But I got really, really, really into it, and then I went bored now.
Yeah, I lost interest after about 4 episodes. Did you ever watch The Strain?
Yes, actually, I think I watched the first 2 seasons of that, and I've got the rest of it to watch. But
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have to get into it with Katie. That was an interesting take on it as well. Those
It
little
was.
parasites.
Well, the first 2 seasons were brilliant, but then at the end of the second season, it sort of goes all horrible, and then the last 2 seasons are just poor.
Oh, well, maybe I won't carry on watching
Yeah.
it then. Maybe
Did you watch up to the guy's kid having the temper tantrum with the nuclear bomb?
Oh no, I don't think I got that far.
Ah, okay. Well, once you hit that point, it goes terrible. But the vampires were really good. The Strigoi.
Yeah, it was such a different take on it, and
Yeah.
it's very rare that there's a different take on vampires.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think Blade was the first one that started approaching it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I quite like Blade.
Yeah. And then when they started, you know, trying to evolve the vampires in different ways and that sort of thing, that was kind of cool as well. But yeah, I think The Strain was the first thing that I saw was just like, oh my god, this is really different vampires. Like, can we even call them vampires anymore?
Yeah. A few more things have come in through the chat. Luke says, yes, it's so good. He's either masturbating or he's talking about the BBC Dracula. He says Bram Stoker's Dracula movie by Coppola is too bad. He really dislikes it. And I agree. I thought it was terrible. Everyone seemed to love it, but I thought it was boring.
Is that the one with Keanu?
Yeah, and Gary Oldman is Dracula.
Yeah. It was all right.
And
I thought it was all right.
yeah.
It just wasn't as amazing as everyone was saying. And I think that's one of the things. When everybody goes on about how amazing a film is and you think it's all right, because your expectation is up here, all of a sudden your view is all the way down here.
Right down there, yeah.
But, you know, it was an all right film.
And Philip makes an excellent point here. Well, we talk about vampires. What we do in the shadows is a must. And I agree, both the film and the TV series. And I know you don't like it, but you have terrible taste. You know, just to be a straight shooter here.
I just couldn't get into it. No, it was just maybe it's something I need to do. I need to have an edible or something and watch.
Yeah, you've got to approach it as the absurdist comedy that it is. Yeah,
so it's definitely brownie time.
Yeah. Luke likes it as well and mentions it's a Taika Waititi film and series. And Philip mentions it's a series as well. Luke says Blade and Underworld were pretty good.
Oh, Underworld is some of my favorite. Honestly, absolutely. I mean, not just because I've got a thing for Celine, but blimey, it's just a great series. I even like the ones without her in it. So, you know, I just really enjoyed the Underworld. I can't wait for the next one.
It was Twilight for grown-ups.
Oh, shut up. Actually, you know, Kate Beckinsale, she's one of the few famous people that I follow that I actually enjoy following.
She's really good, yeah.
Yeah.
As is Lucy Lawless.
Yeah, absolutely lovely person, really down to earth, seems really real. And like some of the texts she shares with her mum, that sort of stuff. It's just like absolutely fantastic person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that endears me to her even more, and the characters that she plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was good in Vacancy as well.
Yes, she played an American in that one.
Yeah.
Which it weirded me out hearing her with an American accent, but she played
And
it
it was a
convincingly.
good American accent as
Yeah,
well.
and to be honest, like accents are a lot harder than people realize.
Yeah. Most British people don't get it.
Not
Like
quite.
if you listen to Bob Hoskins in Super Mario Brothers,
He didn't get it
it's
at
just
all.
horrible. No. And Simon Pegg in The Boys.
Yeah.
And also, Philip says, "How dare you, Joe? We cannot be friends anymore."
Oh.
So get to watching what we do in the shadows and start enjoying it. And Bearded Heretic says, of Underworld, I love the Ancient Vampire Werewolf War. It was so good.
Yeah, that was the third one where they went in the background. The background into the past. I don't know why. And you saw the
Same
whole story
thing.
play out. Yeah, background, past, same difference.
Yeah.
Words, what are they? Only things that don't have any inherent meaning.
You have free speech that can mean what you want.
Oh man. In jokes that pretty much no one will get.
Okay, and that's it. Yeah.
What gives your life meaning?
Sex. It depends what you mean meaning. Do you mean how I find meaning within life?
I would assume that's what he means, yeah.
I find a little bit of meaning in becoming a better me than I was yesterday. Whether it's because I've learned something new, I've improved a skill, I've made someone happy, I've improved someone's life in some way, I've done a small kindness to someone that they're probably not even going to think about, but it's made me happy that I've made their life a little bit better. I think taking pleasure in certain little things. And as I said, small kindnesses. One of the things I do is in the local co-op, we've got the self-service checkouts. And quite often there's tons and tons of baskets all there. And obviously with the COVID world, we've got a strict pattern that you're supposed to go through the store. And sometimes there's no baskets right by the front door and they're all piled up there. And when I've done my little bit of shopping, and put it all in my rucksack, I go and take all those. I take all of the baskets and put them by the front door. And it's just little things like that, small kindnesses. Seeing someone struggling with something and doing that. So yeah, either improving myself in some form of skill or mental acuity type of way, or improving someone else's life and making them a little bit happy. That's kind of what gives my life meaning. And that includes like my kids and my wife and that.
I missed about 30 seconds, but I got the gist of it when I came back. And yeah, it's pretty much the same for me. It's just my family, my friends, doing good things, learning, helping people. Emma. There's all kinds of things that keep my life meaning. There's not any specific thing that I could put a finger on.
What about our chat room? Do I need to put tunes on for a sec?
Opie says hello.
Hey, Opie! Oh my god, yeah, we've actually carried on streaming to a point that you've been able to tune in. Does that mean that you're going to have to go downstairs, Dave?
If we go over more than about half an hour, probably.
Great to see you, though,
Leon,
Opie, by the way.
Yeah. Leon says he doesn't know what the question means,
That's
which
fair.
is fair enough. Yeah. Bearded, Luke says having a net positive impact on the world.
Yep. Good on you.
Yeah.
While you're in the line of work you're in.
And that's it. Yeah.
Cool. Next one then.
What should the goal of humankind be?
Basically everything we just said.
Yeah.
The betterment of ourselves and others. Yeah, I mean that's quite a succinct way to put it.
Yeah. I'm not sure there should be a singular goal. There should be goals for humankind.
Yeah, I think if there was one, that should be it though.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it encompasses a lot of things like education, stopping of wars, ending poverty, bringing freedom, all that kind of stuff.
exactly. There's a ton of goals that lead up to that massive goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, and hopefully one day exploring other worlds. But you know, that's an extension. That's after the fact of that goal that I've just. There any thoughts on that one in the chat room?
Opie says be a better criminal. I tried that one. And now I'm here a philosopher.
It's good to have you, Opie. Cool. Let's move on.
Do you believe in the paranormal or any sort of mystical realm?
I kind of want to, but no. Interestingly, my wife believes in ghosts, even though she doesn't have any other beliefs. She gets really worried that, you know, like her grandparents and stuff will visit her. So I always lean into the Brian Cox thing, about how if ghosts were real, then fridges wouldn't work. I should play the sample, really. And do you know, if we've got time at the end of the stream, I'll dig that out. But yeah, no, I don't believe in paranormal of any sort. Sorry.
Yeah, same. I have to admit that I do like looking into it. And it is one of the reasons I kind of wish a god existed, because then things like a paranormal and a mystical realm would exist. But I would love to go like ghost hunting and things like that. Just not because I expect to find anything, but just because it would be interesting to do.
Yeah, I mean, God, we could be hunters, Dave.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's fun to imagine things like that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why the pair of us love our horror movies and genre in general, and things that fit into that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's generally where all the supernatural fits into that genre of stuff. So yeah, I mean, really like it. I just don't believe in any.
Yeah, and my sister is an atheist, and she believes in the paranormal, and she also believes in an afterlife. Oddly enough.
Interesting. We need to get her on and try and get her to explain that, because I'd really like to know her thoughts.
I think it's more just sort of wishful thinking for ultimate justice.
Yeah, fair.
And ghosts just interest her, and she sort of believes in a soul and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose then it also gives her the opportunity of free will and all of that, if a soul exists, etc.
Yeah. She doesn't think about these things very deeply as such. She goes with what makes her feel good, which is understandable in this life.
Yeah, definitely. It's far too short to spend as much time thinking about this shit as we.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Luke had another one for the last question, which is, I think one of the main goals of universal acceptance of people, providing they haven't done anything wrong, impossible, but my ideal.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And for this question, he says a resounding no. Leon says life was more fun when he believed in ghosts. And I
Yeah,
can see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Luke says, I love the occult and paranormal stuff like War of the Angels. This goes back to my saying about, the Christian mythology can be quite interesting.
Hmm.
Types of demons and ghosts and other cryptids he finds interesting. Manny says no, but he would want to sleep at a haunted house just to see if anything happens. Yeah, I can totally get behind that one. I would love to do it. And see how much of the psychology of just being in the place would feed into how you feel about the place.
Yeah. We do that. Should we try and arrange an Answers in Reason,
Answers in
travel
Reason
around the
ghost.
world?
Yeah. Luke has to go.
Oh, Luke.
So see you later, Luke.
Have yourself a good one, dude. Hopefully we'll see you on Saturday, and failing that, hopefully we'll see you on Sunday for the release of your video.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about Luke, we're talking about Bearded Heretic. Find him on YouTube. That's the one. That's the one we're on right now. God, what's wrong with my brain? He's the one with the sort of like purpley starry background, and he's got a beard.
Funnily enough, if you look in the Answers in Reason playlist, there's a section called Atheism, and you'll find his introductory video in there, and you can click through that to get to his channel.
There you go. So if you're already here, you know how to get there.
If you could recommend one single book to a religious person, what would it be and why?
Oh. Only one. God, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
I mean, because Terry Pratchett wrote so many good books.
Yeah.
It's
like,
why? Well, because they're like, entertaining and they're amazing satire.
Yeah. I mean, when somebody says, what's your favorite horror film or what's your favorite song, how the hell are you supposed to answer that when there's so much, with so much variance and, I mean, yeah, you can't answer a question like that.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you ask me maybe like what my favorite track of a genre that I hate is, because even in genres I don't like, there's always one or two tracks that I do like. So it's probably it's probably either this one or that one. But if you ask me about something that I like, oh my God. And then when we're talking about the context of it, I mean, when I'm thinking about when I read my Terry Pratchett books, I'm in a very, very different state of mind to where I read something like Briefer History of Time by Stephen Hawking or The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. Both amazing books, even though I'm not a big fan of Richard Dawkins in general. That was a great book. And I mean, are we talking about like just to be entertained? There's plenty of good fantasy novels. I suppose Small Gods by Terry Pratchett might be interesting in that regard. Just because it's a satirical take on Christianity. But also, maybe Brief History of Time. Or, if we're talking about young Earth creationists, Dawkins' Selfish Gene would be applicable. There's, I don't know. I mean, how young are they? Stephen Law's Complete Philosophy Files is great for everyone, teenager and below. And to be fair, adults who need an introduction to philosophy. This question is far too open for me to actually give a good answer. The stuff I'm talking about now is stuff that's jumping to my mind, And if I sat back and really thought about it, my answers might change completely. This question needs a hell of a lot of thought, and I still think that even if I spent a couple of weeks thinking about it, my answer would be, I don't know.
Yeah, same. I just have an aneurysm.
Probably be easier to say certain ones why not to look into.
Yeah.
Like Mein Kampf, don't look into that.
Yeah.
Is there any from the chat coming through, Dave?
Opie agrees with us. Too many books. Philip says anything by Opie, probably, but it depends on what's keeping them religious.
The Best Argument Against God by Graham Oppie. There you go.
Yeah. The Gunslinger by Stephen King, just because it's a hell of a good book.
That was one of the ones that led up to the Dark Tower, wasn't it?
It's the first book in the Dark Tower series.
Yeah. See, that was a movie that I watched that I went, this seems like the end of a series that because I didn't realize it was even Stephen Hawking when I watched it, and it seems very rushed, and like it seems like there's a great world of mythology and all of this stuff going on there, but the movie just doesn't do it justice. And then I looked into it, and it was like a Stephen King series, and you know what, Stephen King's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it made me, even though the film was terrible, I want to read the books.
Yeah, the film was shite, and it missed out a lot of the really good stuff from the stories. But the books are fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely need to read more Stephen King. Especially, I like the fact that there are the odd character that he sort of repeats through stuff, like his flag character, who might have a different name, but is in all these different worlds as this main character.
Well, that's who's in the Dark Tower.
Yes.
And he's in the Stand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Maybe there you go. There's one book to read, something by Stephen King.
Yeah. Yeah, don't ask me questions like this because they're just never going to be answered.
And if it's not something by Stephen King, something by Terry Pratchett, because I love Terry Pratchett. Two very different.
James Herbert.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too much.
Yeah, it's way too
much.
Let's move.
Leon says, in a very serious manner, he would recommend The God Delusion. And Philip says, no. God is not great, is much better. And they're both being very super serial here.
Super serial.
Super serial. Prince Vegeta, the Bible was those camel goat herders version of Alien or Star Wars. And as usual, the fans took it too far.
Yeah.
And Leon says, nah, Why There Is No God by the Atheist Republic is the real deal. I've never actually read that one, to be honest.
No, but it's just by who it's by.
Yeah.
Lactheist propaganda. That's all I'm imagining.
Yeah. Well, it's so bad, Manny says, that Leon took the joke too far.
That tells you.
Yeah.
So that's my 10 questions for atheists, and if any of you make a video response to these questions, be sure to leave a comment down below so me and anyone interested can go check out your answers. And remember, I don't require you to cut off your foreskin or be dunked in water. All you have to do is click that subscribe button and you'll be a part of this community. And if you want to be notified whenever I upload a video, be sure to hit that bell button. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next worship service.
If I wasn't already subscribed to this guy, that comment would definitely earn a subscribe. I like a bit of humor, you know.
Yeah. I've seen him in other stuff. I think he answered Braxton's thing as well, and he seemed like a pretty good guy.
Yeah, good. Right, I'm just gonna change the cameras back quickly. And we're back in the room.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I forgot to close the actual screen share. I was like, well, why isn't it all gone then? 2 comments just came in.
Oh yeah.
Or 3. Philip asks if the Atheist Republic book is just a book full of memes. And Mandy says yes. The best of their memes. Leon says he has no idea. All he can say is that the whole thing is meme material. And Philip says I must buy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. And that's the worst thing. Like, I can imagine that that's the way it is.
And I could imagine it being a better seller than anything we could come up with regarding atheism, which is the really sad part.
Jim, the funny thing, when I was first trying to think of a name for our site, one of the first names that I came up with was Atheist Republic, because I didn't know they existed. Yeah, I had no clue they existed at all, because I've never been big in getting into these atheist things. Like when like Chris and Alan and all that went off to see Aaron Ra, it was like, who? Like, why is he such a big deal? And so when I was looking for it, it's like, oh, Atheist Republic, that sounds pretty cool, you know. Yeah. No. And so many of these titles that I thought of would be great ones for us. Do you know, sometimes I feel a little bit cringe about our name these days.
Yeah, but it allows us to make cool titles like Fresh Air.
Yes, of course. And make taglines like, you know, yeah, you can't breathe without air.
Yeah, see? It's all a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
Sure, we have nothing to market, but you know.
And I suppose if all of us suddenly, you know, flip and become theists, we could suddenly change it to just answers in religion. So we wouldn't even have to change like our tag. But yes, we do try to find answers in reason. I just think that it's a big claim in a way. It's what we try to do. It's what we aim for. And I fully support what we aim for. I just almost feel like, well, I'm not bright enough. I think that's a big part of it. I feel like I've set the bar too high for me.
And me.
So, you know, but yeah.
But imagine how people like the badass kicking new atheist or whatever his name is feels when confronted by something like that.
Yeah, like we don't know what we're talking about. Well, that was really interesting, actually. And thank you, everybody who joined in. All of you out there in the chat. That was great. And it was nice to do one of these
Lots of really
videos.
good answers.
Yeah. Nice to see as well that you know, regardless of different ontological positions, and obviously people out there aren't aware that some of you are theists, some of you are agnostic, some of you are atheist. There are a lot of similar answers even among those with those different ontological positions.
Yeah.
So it was quite good to see that as well. So thank you.
And odd how all three of all the different beliefs and kind of ideas, we all managed to have a conversation without insulting and mocking and attacking each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Really, you consider like
Yeah.
the internet and how it generally works.
Aye.
Oh, there's Rojogan says, just tell me what the conclusion is because I don't know philosophy. Is there some god, any kind? I mean, that wasn't tonight's stream. We were just answering questions. Is there some form of god? Shaking my magical outlook doesn't look good. I think that there are plenty of convincing arguments, more convincing arguments for why there aren't gods from a philosophical and scientific point of view than there are for gods existing. I think there are plenty of religions out there that the way that the gods are described within them are self-contradictory. The Abrahamic faiths, for example, the way Yahweh is described in the Bible is, logically incoherent. Does that mean that there's no god, or there wasn't even a god that god was based on? No, of course it doesn't. But we haven't got those claims there. I believe gods don't exist. If someone can prove to me, or at least convince me, that isn't the case, then my beliefs will change. I think you'll have seen a number of times where on the streams, even on air, where my beliefs have changed. There's also been times where we've recorded a video or we've done a stream, and it's sometimes been a few days or a few weeks later where I've just been so thinking about it so much, trying to work it out in my brain, that I then suddenly go, okay, no, now I think this about this topic where I thought about that. Because sometimes change isn't instant. Sometimes it's a case of someone plants a seed, and it's not until you've actually sorted out everything in your brain. Consider it like defragging a hard drive. Like suddenly there's this other thing there that's shaking everything up, and you're like, I don't know what to think about this. And then you have to have that conversation, and eventually you're back in alignment again. You're like, okay, I've got my thoughts settled on this subject again. They're slightly different to how they were before. Let's move forward.
Or you just let me listen to you talk for an hour and a half and then say one comment and see everything change.
But even then, in that video that we did, I was still a bit like, oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And we had conversations on our Discord channel for a couple of days afterwards, and it was like, okay, no, we are more in alignment about how I thought, but this was just sending me off in this different realm, and actually that it was this, and again, I'm in alignment, and I've changed a few things about how I thought before. In fact, that video inspired that video, and the subsequent conversations has inspired another article that I've got writing, which is basically sorting out my brain jumble. The original article that I wrote on it actually still stands. It's just qualifying a few things within it and just explaining a few things within it. And it's just like, yeah, I'll add this to this section and I'll put this in that section. And this is why I think this about that. I think one of the problems when you do have a conversation about free will is because no matter what you do, people keep jumping back to libertarian free will, and you go, let's stop talking about libertarian free will, let's talk about this free will. And then they jump back to that. And that was one of the things within that particular video that was kept on confusing me, because I was like, hang on, we're talking about how it can't happen, but surely this can happen. But it's because the conversation had switched back to talking about libertarian free will without people even realizing. Because when people talk about free will, they are so focused on this religious form of free will that when you say, okay, so let's take that off the cards, we all agree that that can't exist, let's talk about this kind of free will, and you're starting having this conversation, and all of a sudden you're having that conversation again, but you're still on this point, and you're like, what?
Yeah, sometimes language isn't our bitch. We're its bitch.
Very, very true. But I mean, I love that sort of conversation as well, and it has helped me refine my thoughts. It's helped me sharpen my brain a little bit more. It gave me something to think about for a good week. And my position is slightly different, but it's not massively different. It's just almost a more qualified version of what I thought before, which again is a good place to be. I mean, it's a good place to be that you've changed your mind on a new argument. It's just, it hasn't happened that way. It's just, right, okay, I need to try and get people to understand that the way I'm talking about this is this way. And what happened was, when we were talking about this and we moved to this, it jumped back and I was still talking about that. And
Happens to me a lot as well.
But yeah. Just catching up. Prince Vegeta, hey, how you doing? It's Yahweh or the highway. Yahweh is omnipotent till the chariots of iron comes out. I'm sorry, Goku will disagree with you there, Vegeta. So there you go.
It was Vegeta.
No, Vegeta. One of the interesting thing about the Dragon Ball series is pretty much all of their names tends to be types of food, and all the Saiyans, I think, are types of vegetable.
Okay. I don't watch it, so
It's yeah, definitely entertaining. I love the Dragon Ball series. And there's a lot of fun stuff going on in the chat, actually. It's interesting. I am going to let you guys carry on chatting though. But Dave, is there anything that you wanted to cover tonight before we sign off?
no. Just that I really enjoyed those two videos and really enjoyed the discussion.
Yeah, definitely. I probably won't do it tonight, but once I've had a chance to cut out the mix from tonight and chuck it into a video on its own and put it in the SciPhi playlist, I will drop a link to both those guys, saying that, you know, we responded to you at this point, but if you want to watch the whole video, then here you go.
Yeah.
It was a different change of pace as well, because generally in these questions for so and so, it's usually theists asking atheists or atheists asking theists. And I must admit, I mean, the Trinity Radio 10 questions for atheists were quite good, but the average questions for atheists from theists are awful. You and I both responded to an article, didn't we, a little while ago, that seemed to capsulate, it was 36 questions for atheists. And they encapsulated pretty much every terrible question theist asks atheists, which is why we both answered it. And two separate articles. But yeah, it was, our answers were similar in most of the places, but there are a couple of bits where we had different answers. But yeah, they were terrible, which is why we like the Trinity Radio ones, because they're, you know, he's a good guy, is Braxton, and yeah, I enjoyed those, but it was just nice to have a different change of pace. You know, an atheist asking an atheist a question, and both of them seem to be pleasant. Really, I find some of the atheist YouTube, and just like the rest of atheist social media, can be so aggressive and condescending, and both of those guys seem to be like just quite open and genuine and just asking a question. You know, it was nice. So thank you to both of you for posting those videos, asking your questions. Hopefully you checked out our answers and you like them too. So Saturday, unless something happens, about 8 p.m. GMT, 3 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be having a chat with Khalil. That's the empathetic atheist, or the former empathetic atheist, who converted to Islam. and we're just going to be having a chat with him about the about his conversion and the arguments that convinced him and things like that. And the fallout from the atheist community. Now, you might have seen our videos on that, which unfortunately got split in the middle because my sound card died halfway through, and I had to change things. But there's a 2-part bit in the SciPhi playlist, which explains. The first part is the arguments, and the second part is the bad atheist behaviors. So both of those are hopefully going to give you an idea, just a brief overview of things that have gone on, but we're going to have a chat with him ourselves and find out, one, how accurate we actually were, and two, his opinion on everything. And I'd be really interested to speak with him.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that stream. Just catching up with the chat. Vegetables, yes. Yes, they were. Rojogan says, I changed my position often from atheist to agnostic and back. I was in the same position myself. I don't know if you caught the start of the stream. When I was first going through things, I was going from religious to agnostic, atheist, agnostic, and eventually became full-on atheist in that regard. So yeah, Chesh says she did 100 questions in a few parts once with like 3 other people. It was a ton of fun. Yeah, I bet it was. I mean, I do actually like answering these various question videos. Chesh has an amazing channel. So
Yeah,
I
go
would
check her out.
definitely. And the art stuff, that's the stuff that I occasionally see on there. I'm very jealous of your skill. Fuck you. But
We love
yeah.
her, really.
Of course. I wouldn't talk like that to someone that I didn't like. God, who'd you take me for? But yeah, so hopefully we'll see you all on Saturday. I know we don't usually stream on Saturdays. And Leon, yes, I will do my best to remind you. I probably won't be doing a mix beforehand because I might need to help Khalil set up. There have been a few times where we've had guests on and I've been mixing beforehand and it's just gone a little bit wrong. So there might not be a pre-mix on Saturday. But I'm sure that there's only 2 of you that really care about that anyway. So, thank you, absolutely everybody. The last bit of news I just want to say is we breached 180 subscribers today. So, thank you very much, everyone, for subscribing. It's absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate it. So, that's it. That's the end of the stream for tonight. You've been watching the Fresh Air Sci-Fi show. We've been answering 20 questions from atheists. And I'm an atheist known as Joe.
And I'm an atheist known as Dave.
Have yourselves a good one, and good night, everyone.
Good night, all. See you later.